Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're focusing our attention on a really foundational figure, maybe a name not widely known outside northeastern India.
Hmm, possibly not,
Yeah,
but his impact was huge.
absolutely. We're diving into the sources on Semsonsing Ingti.
Right.
Ingti's story is, well, pretty extraordinary, mainly because of the timeline, isn't it? He only lived from 1910 to 1948.
A very short life, yeah.
But in, what, less than 2 decades of public life, he essentially became the recognized father of the Karbi people in Assam.
Undisputed, really.
So our mission today is pretty clear, but it's detailed. We need to unpack the source material to really get at the specific actions that earned him that title.
And it's fascinating because he was wearing multiple hats simultaneously.
Exactly, like political architect, building institutions, from the ground up,
Yeah.
and also this like radical social reformer challenging some really deep-seated customs.
It's a remarkable study in leadership, I think. What makes this deep dive so interesting is seeing how much comprehensive groundwork he laid. You've got political, social, literary,
All of it.
all driven by this intense intellectual focus, and in a region that was relatively isolated back then. When you look at the sources, you see he wasn't just, reacting to things. He was actively trying to design a modern identity for the Karbi community.
Okay, let's start there with that design phase. He was born February 8th, 1910,
Yep.
in what was then Tika Hills, now West Karbi Anglong in Assam. Not exactly a place known for easy access to, say, higher education at the time.
Far from it.
Yet he pursued it, like, relentlessly.
Yeah.
He went through local schools first, Golagat Mission High School, Bisbara High School,
Standard path initially.
but then his education really ramps up. He attends Cotton College in Guwahati, a prestigious place,
There.
and then Murari Chan College in Sylhet. He graduates in 1933. What kind of preparation was this, seeking out these major institutions so far from home?
Well, I think he was consciously acquiring the tools he knew he'd need. Tools of modern statecraft, intellectual leadership.
Right.
By immersing himself in those academic hubs, he wasn't just absorbing ideas about reform that were circulating across India.
Mm-hmm.
He was learning the nuts and bolts. Administration, law. He was strategically equipping himself to, negotiate effectively, first with the colonial government and later with independent India.
That makes sense. And that intellectual prep, it seems like it translated pretty directly into his professional life afterwards. Okay, let's unpack this. After 33, he didn't just dive headfirst into full-time politics, did he?
No, not immediately.
He held some very specific professional roles. What were those, and how did working within the system maybe help him push for reform later?
Right, so he was active as an academic, he did some teaching, but critically he served as a sub-inspector of schools
Okay, sub-inspector, why is that important context?
because it meant he had to travel
Hmm.
a lot, extensively throughout the region. So he
Yeah.
wasn't relying on, say, secondhand reports about conditions.
Huh.
He saw the problems himself, the lack of infrastructure, the social issues firsthand. It gave him a really solid empirical basis for the political demands he'd make later.
Got it. Real-world grounding.
Exactly. And plus, holding a civil service position like that, it gives you administrative experience. It gives you some leverage.
Hmm.
So when he really started pushing for reform, from around 1937 until his death in 48, he knew how the bureaucratic machine actually worked. He understood process.
Which is often more effective.
Much more effective often than just being an activist on the outside shouting in. He could work the system.
So knowing the administrative map helped him draw a political one. Let's pivot there to his big political contribution. He's called the father of Karbi nationalism. What did he actually fundamentally create?
He essentially created the institutional spine for the community. He's credited not just with the idea, but with the actual founding of the Karbi Anglong Council. Before Ingti, you had a shared Karbi identity, sure.
Hmm.
But after Ingti, you had a defined political structure, specifically designed to house and protect that identity.
And this brings us to maybe his most strategic move. The sources are really clear that his main goal was securing autonomy, and he specifically targeted the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. Now, for listeners maybe not familiar with Indian governance, Why was going for the sixth schedule such a masterstroke?
That is the absolute key insight here. The Sixth Schedule isn't just some minor clause. It's a constitutional blueprint designed specifically to protect tribal areas in the northeastern states.
Okay.
So by championing this, Ingti wasn't just asking for, like, state recognition or some funds. He was seeking genuine, constitutionally guaranteed self-governance.
So, practically speaking, what did the sixth schedule promise the Karbi people? What would it let them do?
It empowered them to set up autonomous district councils, the very kind of council he was instrumental in founding. And these councils would have real power, legislative power, judicial power over critical things like land, managing resources, forest control, even administering their own customary laws.
Wow.
It meant securing legal control over their economic and cultural future, protecting them from, excessive outside administrative interference. It was just profound legal foresight.
That really is powerful. Constitutional autonomy, not just a nod from the government. But Ingti must have known that a piece of paper, even the Constitution, wasn't enough on its own.
Absolutely.
He had to consolidate the people themselves to make that constitutional claim stick, right? What did he do, like, on the ground?
Yeah, that was the next massive piece of work. He began this really painstaking, fervent effort to unite Karbis who were scattered all over.
Scattered where?
Across various parts of northeastern India, often living within different larger tribal groups or different administrative areas. He campaigned, persuaded them, urged them to settle together to consolidate within the boundaries of what we now know as the Karbi Anglong district.
That sounds like a huge undertaking, convincing whole families, communities to uproot and move. Why was that geographical consolidation so critical to his plan?
It was pure political pragmatism, really, but built on a cultural vision. First off, demographics matter in politics, right?
Sure.
You need a concentrated population, a majority in a defined area, to justify creating and running an autonomous district council.
Right.
Makes the claim much stronger.
Okay, numbers.
And second, by settling together, they could pool resources more effectively, they could centrally improve schools, infrastructure.
Build community strength.
Yes, and crucially, solidify the physical territory needed to claim that distinct Karbi homeland, protected under the sixth schedule he was fighting for. It was like the physical embodiment of his legal strategy.
He understood that political power starts with physical unity, but you mentioned earlier he wasn't just dealing with the big picture politics, he was also fighting battles within the community. So here's where we shift from constitutional law to maybe cultural friction. He was pushing back against some of his own people's established norms.
Precisely. His work wasn't just about negotiating outwards. It was also about, you could say, internal purification. He seemed to believe that a politically autonomous community also needed to be socially progressive, economically stable.
Right.
And that meant actively battling certain taboos, certain superstitions he felt were holding them back, hindering development, community health.
Can you give some concrete examples? What kind of social battles was he fighting?
Well, take his stance on gender equality.
Yeah.
The sources really highlight this. He passionately spoke out against specific traditional customs. Customs that severely restricted women's freedom of movement, for example, or limited their roles in society, basically keeping them economically sidelined. He was arguing, quite forcefully it seems, that for the whole community to succeed, women had to be liberated, allowed to participate fully in economic life, cultural life. That was a seriously radical position for the 1940s, frankly, in almost any traditional community.
Absolutely. Pushing social change right alongside political revolution. He also tackled community economics, you mentioned. What about agriculture?
Yeah, he promoted tangible improvements. Better farming methods, sure. But also, he encouraged farmers to adopt a more collective living model.
Elective living. How so?
Instead of just scattered, isolated homesteads, he urged them to reside closer together in more organized settlements. This wasn't just some abstract communal ideal, it was practical.
How practical?
It was designed to boost collective productivity.
Yeah.
Easier to share tools, knowledge, build shared infrastructure like irrigation. It created economic stability. And again, it reinforced that need for a consolidated homeland. Everything tied together.
Interconnected strategy. And maybe the most potent example of his personal commitment was his approach to sobriety. That seems like the hardest kind of reform, targeting daily habits.
It really speaks volumes about leading by example, doesn't it? The sources note that traditional beer drinking, or a lank, I believe it's called, had become quite ingrained, a daily habit for many.
Okay.
And he apparently saw this as an impediment, something hindering progress, discipline, focus. So Ingti publicly, and quite dramatically it seems, gave up drinking this traditional beer entirely.
Just stopped completely.
Completely. He made himself a visible, living model of sobriety. The message was clear. Pursuing this unified, modern Karbi future required personal discipline, maybe foregoing some comforting old customs for a larger goal.
That absolutely transforms his authority. It's not just bureaucratic anymore, it's moral.
Definitely.
And we can't talk about his intellectual legacy without touching on his literary side. There's a specific title he holds there, right?
Yes, he's affectionately known as Lametpo.
Lametpo, what does that mean?
It translates roughly to the first writer or the first author, because Semsonsing Ingti was the very first person to write and publish a book specifically in the Karbi language.
The very first one.
Now think about the significance of that. It helps formalize the written language, gives it prestige, ensures its survival. It really cements his role in shaping Karbi cultural identity alongside the political and social work. It's like the cultural capstone.
It is just astounding how much foundational work he managed to pack into such a short period. Let's just recap that timeline again. He passed away on February 28th, 1948.
So young.
In Delhi, at the age of just 38. Right as India is finding its feet after independence, the architect of Karbi identity is gone. He's buried, sources say, at the Nagawean Baptist Church Cemetery.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, his death was undeniably tragic, cut short. But the intellectual groundwork, the political tradition he started, it had already taken root.
It didn't die with him.
No. Those detailed memorandums he wrote, the strategic vision he let out, they didn't just disappear. They became the essential legal and moral bedrock on which the Karbi Anglong district was eventually formally established.
So his influence continues.
Oh, absolutely. His work continues to shape contemporary movements. That specific blend he pioneered, the hard-nosed legal strategy going for the sixth schedule, combined with that relentless grassroots social reform, it gave subsequent generations a clear template.
A template for how to advocate.
Exactly, how to push for effective autonomy, for better governance, even today. The arguments he framed are still relevant.
And his passion for education, for community cohesion.
Yeah.
That must have shaped the aspirations of Karbi leaders and young people who came after him.
For generations, yes. And although, maybe outside the region his legacy sometimes fades in and out of focus, the effort inside the region to keep his vision alive seems strong. Commemorative projects, documentaries, educational materials, they ensure that the public understanding of his foundational role, his importance, remains clear.
So, just to summarize the core identity of the man we've been exploring today, Semsonsing, he was an academic, yes, a civil administrator as sub-inspector, the Lametpo, the first author in Karbi.
Critically important.
And the visionary founder of their modern political, institutional, and maybe even social identity.
So what's the takeaway here? What does this all mean? I think the sources show us a figure who profoundly understood something crucial. You can't really achieve lasting political institutionalization, like setting up councils and getting constitutional rights, without also driving simultaneous, immediate grassroots social change. He tackled both, the big picture, sixth schedule stuff, and the personal, sobriety and gender equality.
You had to go hand in hand.
Exactly. His life really exemplifies the incredible impact one focused individual can have, securing the legal and the cultural future for an entire ethnic group. And he did most of this heavy lifting in barely a decade.
It's truly remarkable, considering that sheer volume of foundational work, political, social, literary, that Semsonsing Ingti crammed into just 11 years, from roughly in 1937 to 1948, before dying at 38. It leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener. What current social or political challenges in your own community, your own sphere, could genuinely benefit from that same kind of blend? That mix of radical, long-term political vision, really understanding the system, the legal tools, combined with immediate, personal, grassroots social reform. Something to think about.